arts for us were not hobbies. They were not leisure activities that once the serious part of studying is over, then if you have a little bit of time, then learn a little bit of dance and singing. No. My parents insisted that just the same as you eat, bathe, get ready, go out to play every single day, arts should be a part of your life.
In schools, we don't learn music that way. So how integral was that relationship of the Guru-Shishya in that learning and in who you are as individuals, and what part of who you are comes from there?
Because institutional framework has specific number of hours, the duration is fixed, the curriculum is fixed, everything is within certain boundaries, whereas the Guru-Shishya Parampara is a lifelong kind of expedition.
Yeah, I mean, you can't be a guru who says, I'm the best, I know best, don't ask me any questions, be a slave. And yes, they often do know the best. But I think curiosity and encouraging curiosity is integral to teaching and learning in any discipline.
How should a good art education in school look like? And what should be some elements of art education that a school should work on, invest on? So, welcome to Building Bharat. Today we are talking to two very, very interesting people. Two people who I look up to and I always go for advice. So, welcome Shubha ji and Aneesh ji.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us over.
You both have had a glorious career in the music space, and today we are looking to explore largely three things. We are looking to explore how your journey growing up has been and how education has impacted that journey of growing up, and what made you to the people you are today, and how has education helped you there. That's the first one. The second is what schools today can do to encourage artists, to create future artists. What is that ecosystem that is needed in schools today? And third, what should a parent of a teenager look to do if he or she is serious about music, if he or she is serious about any form of art and want to pursue it in times of AI, in times of copyright issues, in times of because I know that you guys are in that space. And in the end, we'll explore a little bit about some amazing work that you do, like the Jackfruit Festival and other things for school children. So let's get started.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, so Shubhaji, we would love to know how, I know that you come from Allahabad and your growing up has happened there. Would love to know how that has really shaped you to the person you are today.
Well, I think, I come from a family that was involved in education, in academics. My parents were both teachers of English literature at the Allahabad University. And so I grew up in a home where education was not just deeply valued, deeply respected, but it was also considered an absolutely integral part of our lives. I remember not just my parents, but my maternal grandmother insisting that a good education leads to an independence that every person should have. And I think that was something that I remember with great respect, coming from a lady who was born in 1900. So, of course, education was very valued and respected, but the arts were also an integral part of our lives. I have one sibling, a sister who is 3 years younger than me, and both of us were given ample opportunities to engage with the arts, whether it was to learn music or, learn the little folk dances and things that many children, when we were growing up, we learned. Going for theatre, going for concerts, reading poetry, going to hear eminent poets speak at various places. All this was part of our journey as children growing up. And I think this idea of the arts being an integral part of your life, an involvement with the arts being a very necessary and important factor in your lives, I think that's something that I learned from my parents and the upbringing that I got, because they truly believed that a sustained involvement with the arts is going to sensitize their children. And therefore, arts for us were not hobbies. They were not leisure activities that once the serious part of studying is over, then if you have a little bit of time, then learn a little bit of dance and singing. No. My parents insisted that just the same as you eat, bathe, get ready, go out to play every single day, arts should be a part of your life. So that was something that I think was part of my inheritance from my parents.
Yeah. So when you said sensitize, art will sensitize your life, what do you really mean by that?
Well, we are growing up in a world that is really polarized, that is torn apart by many considerations, whether it's caste, creed, language, community, whatever. But when you listen to a piece of music and it moves you,
Yeah, totally.
you don't care who it is.
Totally.
Whether it is an artist from this community or that community, or when you stand in front of a painting which really takes your breath away,
Yeah.
or disturbs you, or even moves you to tears,
Yeah.
you're not bothered about, which country does this painter belong to,
Yeah, yeah,
or which religion does he or she follow.
Yeah.
And that, I think, really is a quality and a strength
Yeah.
that comes from the arts.
Yeah, in fact, we were just driving up to here. We were listening one of your songs, and we just felt as if you were listening to RRR. And we just felt as if we'll get up and dance. Such beautiful songs. So, sir, you've grown up in Maharashtra,
Yes.
and you've also studied history, and would love to hear how life took you through the journey, and here you are.
Yeah, so unlike Shubha's journey, mine started in a family with professionals, So my father was a journalist, Marathi journalist. Once upon a time, he ran his own newspaper, an evening daily, and then he was in the editorial section of a major Marathi daily. My mother was a lawyer, practicing lawyer, labor, criminal, accident. So education was very important in the family. Both my sisters who are older than me, and so my eldest sister studied law and went on to becoming a lawyer, and then retired as an acting Chief Justice at Calcutta High Court. And the next one, older than me, she's a scientist and works at Yale.
Yeah.
So, but education was not restricted only to the the academic sphere, so to speak. It was more of a holistic education. Like Shubha said, that the arts were very much an integral part of our growing up. So that was the case with us as well. So my sisters took to learning violin, Western classical. I was learning tabla right through my school years. Yes, somewhere along the line, I decided to become a professional. Having said that, I continued my studies, as you said, with history, and then I went on to doing my bachelor's, master's, and PhD. And that has really informed me as a musician. I can, because it's very important for an artist, and in fact any individual in society, to understand the past.
Yeah.
So that you understand better your present.
Yeah. True.
And
Totally.
look to a future.
Yeah.
So that understanding the historical context was very important for me, and has really enriched my life as an artist. And yes, so that's how the journey began as a young kid, and has evolved.
So in in the past and even today, I think when somebody is practicing classical music and want to grow in that space, it is a lot through the Guru-Shishya parampara. And both of you have been a part of that journey. How much, like, what do you think you took from that lineage and that way of learning music? Because in schools we don't learn music that way. So how integral was that relationship of the Guru Shishya in that learning and in who you are as individuals, and what part of who you are comes from there?
Well, I think I don't mean to run down institutional training in any subject. But I think what we need to perhaps understand is that in the Guru Shishya tradition, there is customized training for every individual student. Whereas in an institution, largely, we have a group of students in a class, and therefore the pedagogic methods must be directed towards being able to instruct a group of people. Even in the Guru Shishya parampara, sometimes where you can be called for training sessions, talim sessions, with your Guru Bhai and Guru Behen, and more than maybe just one or two of them. So there can be group classes, but primarily the one special aspect of the Guru Shishya parampara is the fact that it gives each student customized attention. In institutions, at least in India, I have not heard currently of any schools that are for gifted children, for specially, exceptionally gifted children in music or theatre or the arts. You have a National School of Drama, but that's for adults, young adults. It's not for children. So I think there are many wonderful aspects of institutionalized training. I think sometimes the Guru Shishya parampara can lead you to become very isolated, only within a certain, let's say, a gharana or a particular style of training. Whereas when you're going to school, you are constantly reminded that there are many other children who are very talented also, who have many strengths which you don't have. And the sheer joy of being together in a group, I think that for me is also very exciting. And I call myself, when I say this, I'm talking of myself as a student of music. When you stand with a group of people even today and start singing, there's a certain energy.
Yeah.
There's a certain empowerment that you get. You don't feel, nervous about just your voice being heard. In that group, you are able to raise your voice and sing with a certain abandon. So I think there are many strengths in both ways of teaching. And fortunately, Aneesh and I have gone through both systems. We have learnt in the Guru Shishya parampara, but we've also gone to institutions, and we've also had the opportunity, thanks to your parents and the many schools that your family also runs, and many other colleges and institutions that have given us the opportunity to study, still be students, but study the way music can be taught, and to look at ways of perhaps creating spaces where music can be integrated, not just as an isolated music class, but also connected with geography, history, literature, mathematics, and many other subjects that are being taught to every school child who goes to school in India.
I think it's also important to understand why the Guru Shishya parampara still exists. I mean, the idea is for training people to become professionals in that art form. If you're an amateur and you want to be a reasonably good singer or instrumentalist, it's fine. But to be a professional, that's where you need to go through a certain regimen, which is not possible within the institutional framework. Because institutional framework has specific number of hours, the duration is fixed, the curriculum is fixed. Everything is within certain boundaries. Whereas the Guru-Shishya Parampara is a lifelong kind of expedition that you've set out on. And like Shubha said, that as students, we've had the good fortune of experiencing both. And now, as teachers, we are experiencing both as well. I mean, we don't call ourselves gurus, but whether you call yourself a mentor or other people call you a mentor, but that individual training, and that's what we do with a set of students today. And there are pros and cons in both
Systems,
areas,
yeah.
both systems. And the unfortunate part, I feel, is that both systems or people who conduct, study in both systems don't seem to review the systems. And that sometimes is problematic. Not sometimes, it is definitely problematic. In the Guru-Shishya Parampara, for instance, just as an example, although you have this individual and customized training, the Shishya years ago was subservient to the Guru. You came as a supplicant. And there was a reason for that, because the Guru was the interpreter of the knowledge, wisdom, and scholarship of previous generations, okay, in what was essentially an oral tradition. Of course, you had textual aids as well, but primarily it was an oral tradition. Today, that continues within the Guru-Shishya Parampara. Therefore, the Guru is important in that context, and he or she becomes plays a pivotal role as an interpreter. But the idea of being a supplicant continues to this day in many cases, and that can be problematic, because then can you be a curious, inquisitive person and ask questions?
Being that both of them together.
Yes.
Yeah.
And will those questions be entertained? Will the Guru be honest enough to say that I don't have answers to all questions?
There was a very interesting, I think, Netflix series around this. And it was pretty famous about the Guru-Shishya Parampara and the classical music. I'm not recalling the name.
It's a movie, actually. It's, The Disciple. Are you talking
I
about?
think he's talking
Oh,
about
you're talking about
Bandish.
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 Okay. Yeah.
I was hooked on to it.
Okay.
I think we saw the series over a weekend, and it was very interesting. Yes.
Yeah, so review is necessary even in the Guru-Shishya Parampara, constantly.
Yeah.
And because Shubha previously said that, what do the arts sensitize us as individuals?
Yeah.
They sensitize us to becoming compassionate, empathetic, etc., etc.
Yeah.
And to being listeners.
Yeah.
If you're not listening to anybody, how can you be a musician?
Yeah.
Exactly. So then if the art is sensitizing you, then the pedagogy also should sensitize you similarly.
Yeah, I mean, you can't be a guru who says, I'm the best, I know best, don't ask me any questions, be a slave. And yes, they often do know the best. But I think curiosity and encouraging curiosity is integral to teaching and learning in any discipline. So if you're told, don't ask me a single question, or I will really slam you if you ask me a question, then how will you encourage curiosity? Or if you create a distance between yourself, I'm not saying that you need to be, it's a very complicated relationship, So if your student is unable to open out and ask you questions, feels scared that you will be chastised or even, thrown out if you ask a question, you are actually creating a wall. Whereas art has always been about breaking down walls.
Yeah, interesting.
And similarly, I think even in the institutionalized framework, this idea of reviewing, of course, there are often policy changes, okay? but is that policy being executed on ground?
Yeah, the
and
way-
how is it being executed?
Yeah.
If you have the same bunch of people who have been doing it for decades in a particular fashion,
Yeah.
so is there some sort of refresher course that they are undergoing, to allow for experimentation in this area?
Yeah.
So, because the arts is about creativity,
Yeah.
and if the pedagogy is, is not allowing any creativity, then there's a huge problem.
Yeah.
If you're teaching children to draw little houses with sloping roofs and two crows in the sky, then you're not going to find that
Sure.
painter who's
Yeah.
going to, move the minds and hearts
Yeah,
of many
yeah,
people.
yeah.
So I think it's this entire reverence for the Guru-Shishya parampara, we hold it in great regard. There is no question of undermining it in any way. But I think the idea is also to be a mentor who points you not just to the system, to the craft, to teaching you what each rag is about, what each tal is about, to teaching you compositions, but what is inherent in that profound system. If you are not helped to build a heart and a mind that takes joy in all the flora and fauna that you see around you, it doesn't take joy in the beauty of a morning or dawn or dusk, is not compassionate towards the pain of others, is not joining in the joy of others, then what are you going to sing about? You're going to sing words which have no meaning. And so it seems so ironical that, let's say, for example, these days Sufi music is very popular. Everybody wants Sufi music, but nobody thinks of the Sufi philosophy. Hardly anyone. What is the Sufi philosophy? It's an all-encompassing philosophy that teaches you love. Do we love everyone? So we are happy to sing the Sufi song, but reject the philosophy.
Yeah, very very interesting, because it's a paradox, because if, like, I work in schools and I see that after a certain grade level or after a certain age, the entire system crashes everything else and just move towards marks. And we feel that, okay, if we provide so much hours of mathematics teaching and English teaching and science teaching, and the child will score marks, but often that is not the case, right? But it's very difficult to explain and help people understand that what really arts can do, because you can't really measure a lot of it.
Right. I think also the problem in our situation has been that over the past several decades now, education has been related to employment generation. Whereas education is about enriching life experience. Okay, they're two different things. Okay, you learn poetry, you learn, how to write an essay or mathematics or whatever else, not necessarily to work in a bank or something like that. But unfortunately, that these two areas have been tied together, and I can understand the pressures as well as a result of that on families and teachers, and therefore on students as well. So I'm not too sure whether what's the way out. Maybe better time management in schools or whatever.
I think evaluation of success is one of the areas that needs to be discussed. And certainly I don't think there's any one solution. I think each institution will have to perhaps work out what is important for them. To have happy children who are not performers as such, but who are able to enjoy art. Perhaps that is an evaluation that needs to take place in a different way. Whereas if you want to say that my school children have sung at so-and-so great festival, then that's another. And I think for that you need special institutions for gifted children. And I think a special way of teaching them needs to be developed. But I think integrating of the arts in today's time with the mainstream education policy is a must and must be done on an urgent basis and not only paying lip service. So there have been occasions when arts have been integrated, including in the current national education policy. But what has been done to do that? Are there books for children? And for children, I mean, will you give the same books to primary school children, to mid-school children, or to high school children? You need to create those resources. You need to create games for them. You need to create spaces where creativity can be explored. And why should creativity only come when you stand in front of a stadium full of people who are shouting your name out in? Creativity has its own. Let's be creative about creativity also and judging what is creative. So something that can be deeply disturbing or which makes you cry is also great art. So why don't we look at other ways of getting children to engage with the arts? I would be really delighted if children were to tell me about another system of music, which I'm not studying, that, this is what is important. Look for this aspect in this music because we know we are from this region. This great artist has been working in this way. If they had that information, were not able to sing or play an instrument, but were able to tell me that, I think they would, I would just do a namaskar to them right away.
Yeah. You've always also talked about, when you're working with arts in school, like music or any other form of art, it's not just about teaching them how to perform, but it's also about appreciating various forms of art and other things, right? So would love to understand, how should a good art education in school look like, and what should be some elements of art education that a school should work on, invest on?
I think our culture, Indian culture, is a perfect example of diversity and plurality of forms and systems, and for several centuries. So I think we need to, build on that rather than making everything very monotonous. So, for instance, classical musicians or even teachers or even parents who don't very often listen to classical music, they feel that the children should be learning only classical music. So this whole emphasis on classical music, I think, is unwarranted. Of course, that system is the systems of classical music in our country are significant, and there's a lot of grammar and repertoire that you can learn from that. But that is not to say that, for instance, you can't learn from folk traditions or even from popular music. If there's a film song, there's so many areas there that you can look at. So I have I think that even in the arts education program at school level, this integrated approach is necessary. We used to do a very simple thing like music mapping, right? So let's say it's a university classroom or even school, and mapping is something that is part of geography as well. So you can tie in the disciplines. You can take the students out for a camp or whatever, and let's say you look at instrument makers in your neighborhood. Or you look at concert venues in your neighborhood. Okay, their history. Okay, what kind of music, what kind of acoustics. So then you're thinking about physics as well. So I'm just thinking aloud here, but I have a feeling that you can. So if it's like a dome-shaped place that concerts take place in, so what kind of resonance is there? Okay, what happens if you have a PA system how does it impact the sound? So people who are more inclined towards the sciences perhaps will think differently about sound, so frequency, decibel level, etc. So I think we can teach music in many ways and in different ways. And I guess the same must hold true for the other arts as well.
Absolutely. I mean, talking of music mapping, let's say you were to give a group of your students a project that on every child now has a mobile phone.
Yeah.
In the vicinity of your school and going from school to home, what are the sounds they hear? Including urban sounds like vehicular traffic or construction work. Just sensitizing them to listening for sounds where they will hear both pleasant, unpleasant sounds. They will hear people fighting. They will hear people singing at various places. They will hear birds. They will hear, I think, just drawing their attention and saying, okay, at this Google location, I was listening to this music. And suddenly when you look at those little pins, you will see what different kinds of music exist within those, let's say, 2 to 5 kilometers. And once you start talking about them, there's not a single piece of music that is being sung or performed by either the teacher or the student. You're just talking about music and sound. But you're learning a lot more than perhaps you would have maybe not wanted to go. The student may not want to go to listen to, to learn classical music. But this, which is the phone, which is a modern day gadget, which we are all saying is a big problem gadget. But we can put it to good use and see how you are sensitizing your children to listening to various sounds, and not just listening in a way, okay, ye ho gaya, but analyzing what they're listening to, what is the context in which that sound is being made, and perhaps the effect it has on people. I think in India we're going to face a big problem of noise pollution as well. So we need to really start thinking in advance rather than wait for that disaster management mode when disaster is already on our heads.
Actually, when we think of environment, even in the context of school education, we normally think of flora, fauna, but we don't think of the sonic environment. So what's the soundscape that you're living within? And it's really important to think about that, especially when you're talking about noise pollution. And as human beings, when we grow older, we seem to, stop listening to things. We are hearing things, but listening. I mean, it's not only a biological act. It's something that you're carefully registering. And so I think that it's important to, without it being obsessive also, but it's good to train your ears to different frequency levels. And that has an impact on your music as well.
Absolutely. This act of listening, in fact, one of Aneesh's books is called Ways of Listening. And I think encouraging listening and with a sense of analysis is going to sharpen many skills.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, right now is the time of videos. But earlier, if you would just listen to stories, you would create a lot of imagination and, various things around that. I'm interested to know that, while in schools, there's a lot of space for, like, a lot of schools work with arts. They set up interesting curriculums, programs. What do you think the environment of the school can really do for a budding artist? How can a school set up the right environment that, that people are interested towards the art and not just interested towards engineering and medical, and, they see arts seriously? What would it take to do something around that?
Well, for one, the school has to have the resources, financial resources first to build something like that. But it would be great, like for instance, for the sciences, you have laboratories. So for, let's say, a music class should be in a music room rather than a room that is used for every other purpose. So, and when you have a room that is specifically dedicated to, let's say, music training, then you can have a stock of instruments which are easily accessible. You can have other teaching aids, whether it's posters, books, whatever, or audio material, video material. All of that can be housed in that single room, and the seating arrangement also can be devised accordingly depending on the system of music that you're teaching. So if you need to be sitting on the floor, then you have to have a carpeted floor and not a table and
chair kind of situation.
So these are little things, but I think they make a lot of sense when you're thinking about a conducive environment for teaching music.
I think having an audio-video library with a guide. So I think we've been talking about that for many decades now with many of the institutions that we worked with. And I think really it is very important to develop, and this is not going to happen overnight.
In fact, we even spoke to record labels
Yes.
about this. It would have made sense to them as well, as a marketing thing, but somehow the executives didn't.
No, Siddharth, if you go out of India, or even in India, you can pick up a book which gives you a listening guide for jazz or for Western classical music. You will not find such a guide for Indian music.
Okay.
And I think it will need to be developed. I think the technology is there. No longer are we bound by things like having to print a certain number of copies of books. It can be an open platform. It can be open to everyone who wants to contribute, but with an editorial team that says this needs to be about fact and not fiction. And all lovely stories and anecdotes and myths and legends about the music should be in a fact and in a fiction section, not in a fact section. But building on that, which still may not be very accessible for kids, but will be more accessible for their teachers. And their teachers can refer to that listening guide and then discuss that piece of music or that genre or that system of music with the students in a proper class.
So what you're saying, very interesting, is about like if there's a piece of music or a song, then there has to be a guide that we can work on that, which will allow the teacher to explain that song, the history behind that song, how did it come to setting, and all of the information around that song. And it will make it very much more interesting.
Yes, and also the child can decide then whether or not they wish to value that piece of music. So we should be prepared that some systems of music will not appeal to many children. No need to force. In fact, we should tell the children, you bring your preferred piece of music.
And we find information around
yes,
that.
let's find information about it and let's put it in our library. That so-and-so child from class 5C loves this piece of music for this reason. Otherwise, what is happening is that, the idea of art transcending various barriers is only something that we talk about. We don't really live it. Even though it's happening right here. How do stadium full of people go to listen to a band from outside of India paying enormous ticket prices? And I love the idea. I think it's wonderful that they're paying for such a concert. It's because there's peer pressure to be at that concert.
Yes.
It's not necessarily, they may not understand one word of it.
It's a social thing.
It's a social thing. And let it be. That's fine. There's no need to ban that, run it down, cry, foul, nothing of the sort. Please do welcome artists. But I think it's also important that we say that the person in your neighborhood who perhaps is the grandfather of one of the kids studying in your school has made a major contribution to the arts of your country. And you don't know about it. It's maybe because, ghar ki murgi dal barabar.
Correct.
But it is very necessary to have this factual information and the context in which a piece of music is being made for it to reach everybody. Otherwise, people don't know.
Yeah.
And I mean, as students of music, I have no hesitation in saying we've been studying music for decades. We know so little about other systems of music in India that we feel ashamed sometimes. Let's ask ourselves, do we know anything about music from Northeast, for example? Which, I mean, barring a few very general facts, we will not know. I don't know much about Carnatic music, despite having spent decades learning Hindustani music. So the whole process of learning is exciting. It's discovery. It's really a companion activity for the rest of your life. But we should just make it a happy journey and not one that is with a burden.
Yeah. And yeah, absolutely. You know, if you enjoy a piece of music and you come to know the story, how it was shot, and it'll just create so much more curiosity, and that feeling of belongingness to that music is something that will come through, you know, and that'll make a person an inquirer and want to know more about. Very, very, very interesting. I'm also very curious that, you know, this is something that I've always been thinking about, that if you want to be an engineer or if you want to be a doctor, there's a very clear path that's defined, you know, that do this and then do this and then do this and then do this, and you will finally be one of them. What do you think is that path for an artist? What is that path for being a Shubha Mudgal or an Aneesh ji?
There is no single trajectory for being an artist. In fact, it's not something that is a well-paved kind of path. You have to find your own path. Naturally, of course, there are milestones. The first milestone is, of course, to find a person who will teach you well and accept you as a student. So that's the first milestone. Then the next milestone is, slowly breaking out into the public arena and starting to perform for smaller groups first, and then larger music circles, and then festivals, and maybe radio, television. So basically, this would be the journey, but it's not really necessary that you need to absolutely fulfill each of these, you know. Sometimes you're at the right place at the right time, and things may change completely, you know. So, but I think the most important aspect, and that's I think important for any education, is that you approach it with humility. Because if you're not humble, then you can't learn anything. So you need to approach the journey itself with humility and say that, okay, I'm going to enrich myself with this education. I'm going to try to do that. And what comes of it, I'm not too sure. Because it's not like a job, right? A 9-to-5 job. It's something that's quite different and depends on your creative ability. And very often it's a soloistic kind of system of music. For instance, Hindustani music, you might have a vocalist and then 2 or 3 accompanists. And in the case of an instrumental music performance, it's 1 instrumentalist and 1 accompanist normally. So it's soloistic, Most of the time you are practicing on your own, in your own room. When you're learning from your guru, it's just the guru and you. So it's very rigorous, of course, but it's an individual journey. And often you might feel pressured, okay, this person has achieved this much, but I haven't. Like any other sphere, where there's a lot of competition. But if your eye is on the journey and not on some, indeterminate goal, because what is the goal for an artist? The goal for an artist is to make good art, something that makes you feel, something that makes you think, and something that you can communicate to another person. So it's not about a degree or how much money you're going to earn. Of course, those are important, but that's not the destination.
Yeah. So what you're saying is, and I think I see that because that's largely where parents discourage their children to
Yes.
go into arts, because there's no like a number that you can
Yeah, there's
put
no
to
tangible
it, right? Result or a goal that you can put to it, and it
Yes.
is a journey which will unfold, and only time will allow it to unfold.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So of course, it's full of risks, but life is full of risks.
Absolutely.
And life,
And even corporate jobs are full of
Yeah.
risk
Yeah,
nowadays.
and life is a gamble. So you just go
So
with it.
what would you advise or say to a teacher or a principal or a parent of a teenager who wants to pursue this journey? I'm sure you have gone through that phase of life. What would you advise that parent? How should they look at their son or daughter? What are things that they should prioritize? What are things that they should not be doing, and which will discourage them?
I mean, in my case, I can say that I can tell you what my parents did. Okay. And of course, this is a liberal household. So they thought a lot out of the box. So, so like I said, they encouraged all of us to, all the children to take to the arts. And the idea was to expose us to as many inputs as possible. And then it's up to us what to select. So I decided when I was in 7th grade, that I just wanted to do music. So and I think similarly for
Yes,
Shubha, I
and
think-
I
So
also,
which
yeah, please.
which was that one moment, when it was like, okay, I'm sure in a journey there are successes, there are failures, and when you start out, sometimes there are failures. In that journey, did you have like a moment where you were second guessing yourself that did I make the right decision, or I would have done this and I would have been more easy off? And
I never thought about that. Yeah. But that maybe it's just me,
Neither have I. But I think, in both our cases, the unconditional support of our families has made it possible for us to really be involved deeply in the study of music.
And great training from our gurus.
Yes, great training from our gurus. But I also think as a parent, I feel it's important to be able to encourage your child to make independent decisions. And I think that it's perhaps one of the things, who am I to give advice to any parent?
Yeah.
But I really feel, what is it that a parent at the core wants for their children? That their children should be happy. Forcing them into a discipline or a career or a profession that may be more secure, or perhaps perceived as being more secure, but makes them unhappy or feel closeted or feel that they're not really happy in that situation. I think perhaps a rethink needs to be done there. Yes, you may see your child going through financial problems or financial insecurity, but I don't think that in current times there is like complete financial security for anything and anyone. And I think for me it's been important to for me that, look, what did my parents teach me? They let me decide what I wanted to do, pointed me in one direction. But I must also mention that constantly my mother, and I often share this particularly with my female students, I would say to my mother that, I'm feeling very worried. how will I go alone to this concert? Nobody's going with me. And my mother would never say, I mean, she said, you want me to come along? I'll come along. But for how many years am I going to do this? At some point, you have to deal with this yourself. If you feel scared, you should think of another profession. Or, for example, if I said, I faced criticism and I came home, with a sob story, she would say, well, you decided to do this. So face the music, and you've also got a lot of appreciation. So I think, for me, this kind of parenting which helped an independent approach, which means I also got into trouble with them. So I think...
What was, maybe if you can share maybe one or two troublesome...
Well, like, for example, the whole world of classical music is very... there is a particular way of conducting yourself before a teacher. You don't act, arrogant in front of your teacher. And I would come home from my Talim sessions saying, I got scolded in front of everybody. I'm not going back and I feel very humiliated and I don't want to go back next time. And I would insist, why should I have to sing for so many hours every day? I'm going to relax. And I was singing, I would go out with my friends, go for a film, sing film songs instead of practicing what had been taught to me. And my parents would always say, it's your call, If you don't want to go, no problem. But you haven't really prepared what was asked of you. So you're in no position to say that your guru was unfair to you. But I think that kind of solid, not doting at all, parenting, but which also gives you the freedom to make decisions which perhaps you may not agree with.
So the role of the parent is to just be there, show you the mirror, and let you take that decision.
Yes.
That moral support is
very important.
Yeah.
Because it's a very lonely journey.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the ups and downs without your realizing. You may think that a person is extremely successful. They may have people falling at their feet. But inside they may be just, very tender.
Yeah.
And very, very sensitive to many things.
Yeah.
And the fact that your family is there to call a spade, but also be there when you fall, is something that, there's no way that we can thank our families enough.
Yeah,
also, it's also a very lonely path because your friends, let's say at school and in university, are often doing things which you're not doing.
Yes.
They may be into the sciences or even humanities, but working towards a degree and then going on to perhaps being a scientist, a doctor, or whatever, a chartered accountant. But so there are very few people who are, in the arts, training in the arts and want to stick to the arts.
Yeah.
So in that situation, I think the role of the family becomes very important.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's a very big support.
Yeah.
And also the role of your school,
Very important.
in recognizing the talent, that, okay, this person has that, so it should be encouraged. And not just encouraged merely to have him or her sing a song or two for a particular school function, but to have a sustained kind of, engagement with that art.
And perhaps it's worth remembering that every artist who has made a big impact has been able to do something different from people in the same field earlier. It's that ability to have your own voice, which, whether it's writing or painting or music or architecture or photography, everybody, there have been great photographers, but you will look at a photograph and say, oh, this looks like so-and-so's. So finding that is important. And in school, if we have a set standard that, okay, this is what we consider successful, then we may not be able to find that child with that little spark. And parental approval, familial approval, and the approval from the school can really build a support system for an artist who could take the world by storm.
Very interesting how you've, multiple times said that what is it that you define success with. And an interesting experiment that I try and do when I meet a lot of parents is I get them to write a letter to themselves. 15 years down the line, where do you see your child? Where do you see your family? Because I see a lot of people sending their children to school without knowing what is the outcome they want from it. So, like you said in the beginning also that स्कूल बच्चे को भेज रहे हैं क्योंकि एक इनकम या एक एम्प्लॉयबिलिटी चाहिए इसलिए, बट अ लॉट ऑफ पीपल डोंट वांट दैट, बट दे डोंट नो दैट. So it's really important that people know what is it that they are wanting to really achieve. So to the last leg of this discussion, and I've been understanding that when you watch a movie or when you read a book, that piece of content really programs your mind. And it is very similar for music. When you listen to a song and that song is constantly playing in your mind if it's a catchy one, and those words start defining how you also start to think and feel. And this happens for children as well. So how do you see that the music of India, music of today, defining that? Is it good that we are listening to all these songs with a lot of curse words in them, and children are listening to those songs? What do we think that as a country we should be doing to, and what is your take on this?
It's a very difficult question. The reason being that I wouldn't want to be very moralistic about it. Because the moment you are prescriptive and then you tell the child, don't listen to this, the child is bound to listen to that. Okay. So I think if you feel that the child is listening to a particular kind of music or song, then you need to discuss it. Like for instance, I'm told we are encouraging sex education as well. So why not discuss this as well? And it's not that our traditional repertoire didn't have very amorous, lyrics. I mean, they may not have had curse words in every song. Some do, but not all. So it's not that these things didn't exist in the past. Okay, it was in different language, and not in English. So we need to understand that there's a historical context to that as well. And then now, okay, this is staring in your face, so you can't hide from it. And there's no point in banning it. So it's better to engage in a conversation with the kid and, try to understand where it's all coming from. What do you think?
Yes, and I also think that it's important to engage with literature and to point out that, look, do we ever encourage our children to curse at home? We never. I don't know of a family that says, okay, go ahead, curse your grandparents, or use expletives in front of your grandparents.
Yeah.
In most homes, there is a kind of a protocol and an etiquette that is taught to children. Then why can't we say that, look, this is the song itself. If you want to sing it, fine, but do you know what that word means? And if you know what that word means, then you may not want to sing it just anywhere and everywhere. Because do you want to be disrespectful not only to members of family, but let's say to women or to men? Or do you want, our country teaches us that there should be nobody should be discriminated against on the basis of caste, creed or religion. So if there is, let's say, there are many songs, jisme ahir kuch ho raha hai, referring to, of course, Krishna. But can we point that out to them? That, look, this is the name of a particular caste and community. But we now refer to this, we use this term to denote, let's say, Lord Krishna. I think just that explanation will tell children, because they are wonderful learners, they will understand that, okay, this should not be sung just anywhere. They may get a thrill out of singing it amongst their friends. But I feel that freedom should be there. And perhaps when we are selecting songs, when we are creating guides for them, perhaps these issues should also be discussed, because let's say on streaming platforms, you have the system of lyrics being with an asterisk saying explicit. But I think probing a little further and discussing it with the children who are singing the lyrics and explaining to them, let's see if you want to say all of this, even in song. So I think that's about all that would be required.
Yeah, because if you look at any of the movies, or if you look at a series, you always have a way of saying that, okay, this is 7+, this is 13+, but that does not exist for songs. And that is why even a 4-year-old can play any song and listen to any song. And is there a system that we can really look at, that certain songs, because there's no system, there's no awareness around it, that how the song can really impact a child growing up.
Yeah, and I think here is where the AI business can prove tricky, because when you feed in, AI is wonderful when you've fed in a lot of information which it is able to then process. But if somebody, because in any language, whether it's in particular, let's say Hindi, Bangla, whatever, words are not always used in isolation. They are also used in a context, and the same word can can have different connotations in different contexts. Now, if Mr. AI doesn't know that, then there's going to be a mess. And things can be marked explicit without there being really any reason, and vice versa. So I think all of that will have to be thought about by the masterminds that are creating this universe. And we will also have to think as educators, as parents, as students ourselves who are learning still, that, okay, these are things which are, they're utilities, they can really help you, but use them also with your own mind in place.
Yeah, very, very. So yeah, this has been something that has been on my mind for a very long time, because I have 2 kids, both very, very small, and my daughter comes back to me one day singing a K-pop Demon Hunter song, and she's also making me sing that song. So she's also making me learn that song. Yeah. So thank you for your time. It has been a pleasure conversing with the both of you, and a lot of takeaways for me as a person. And I look forward to conversing with you on the arts program and understanding more about it, and look forward to implementing a lot of advice that you've given us today in the school.
No, thank
Thank
you
you.
for
Thank
being
you
so
so
sensitive
much.
to the
Yes.
arts.
Thank you very
you.
much. Thank you.
So thank you for joining us. We've heard 2 amazing voices who are building the Bharat of 2040, and stay tuned to this conversation. I look forward to bringing amazing guests from different fields, stalwarts in themselves, who will help us define how education should look like if we have to truly build the Bharat of 2040. Jai Hind.